It's Friday here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We've got Nick Farabaugh with us. We're going to talk about what are the biggest problems of the Steelers right now as they're trying to figure out a way out of their 3-game skid. They get a long 10-day break here before their next game, but they got to figure things out before the playoffs. We'll also get to our Week 17 picks here in the NFL. It's the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things of the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. More on them later. We're joined by the man himself, Nick Farabaugh, Steelers beat writer for PennLive.com. You know him, you love him. He's been on this show multiple times. Nick, if I were to point around the room, there's several different people in the Steelers locker room that would be deserving of blame. You could say Russell Wilson. You could say the offensive line. You could say George Pickens for not running his routes. You could say someone in the defense because clearly everyone's talking about somebody. But I think there's a few somebodies that deserves blame here. But out of all the things that have gone wrong for the Steelers, what do you feel like has been the most impactful problem, and what's the most correctable problem?
The defense is the most correctable and the biggest problem right now. Now, I'm not going to absolve the offense. We'll get to the offense. Trust me. I think that one's a little tougher because I think there's a few culprits there, and it goes around rather than just to one key area. The key area I'm talking about on defense is how hard can it be to communicate correctly in December? How hard can that be? There's no other team busting coverages weekly like the Pittsburgh Steelers are, being out of run fits like the Pittsburgh Steelers are. I think Deshaun Elliott said it perfectly. We should be seeing this stuff get out there in week 2, man. Like, this is week 17. They're going to be playing in week 18 and then the playoffs coming. And they are busting coverage. They are leaving Travis Kelce wide open. Travis Kelce!
Of all people.
For like 5 or 6 times, he is wide open against them. I'm like, what is going on? Derrick Henry had 3.6 yards before contact last week. You are letting guys wide open. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, wide open. You are leaving really good players wide open. Guys that you can't leave wide open. For my count, Chris, I've watched the tape the last 2 weeks, and I counted things up. 5 coverage busts for TDs.
Yep.
14 other plays that went for explosive plays in the air. That's not counting what happened on the ground against the Ravens, where they had multiple bad run fits with communication errors just because they were out of fit, they shifted wrong, they reacted too late, et cetera, et cetera. There are multiple times in both of these games, Chris, where you can see 2 guys looking at each other, talking as the ball is snapped, and then they react late. And then something goes wrong after the snap, and they're looking at each other.
They're all pointing at each other, yeah.
It is a mess. I think that part is coaching part 1, because coaches, you can't have this happen. Like, either the preparation during the week is not going well enough, the players aren't getting it, they have too many questions, or 2, someone's flubbing it out there and someone's trying to play hero ball. And I think maybe there's a little bit of both going on. This defense, though, if this defense is playing at least a competent level, I mean, you at least have to force Patrick Mahomes to be Patrick Mahomes. You have to force Travis Kelce to be Travis Kelce. It didn't have to be Travis Kelce out there yesterday. Chris, it could have been you running those routes on some of those plays, and you would have caught, 5 catches for 80 yards. I mean,
whoa. That's a lot of running, 80 yards. I might go like 20, but
still, man. I mean,
but to your point, right? To your point, guys are wide open, and that was Deshaun Elliott's point. And I thought it was interesting at one point during when he was going off. He says, we are communicating. And I think he's saying we say where we're supposed to be and guys still aren't there. And to me, that's where it comes down to, okay, so they clearly had a plan for these plays. It's not like they were like, whoa, the Chiefs did something new. It's more like, guys, we worked on this. We studied this all week. We practiced it. Why is it a problem right now? And that's the sense that I'm getting is that they're looking at it. And Deshaun Elliott's like, they shouldn't be week 1 or 2. Because that's the other thing. It's not like this has been all season. This team has been very good. It's won a lot of games, because it's been in place, because they've done it. And again, against good teams. They're 5-3 against playoff teams this year. And they've done it against good quarterbacks. So the last 3 weeks, you look at a common problem, and you and I were talking off air. I think that you could point to certain plays here and there. Like Minkah Fitzpatrick should have been in position for Xavier Worthy's touchdown. Patrick Queen's missed some plays here and there. But there is a constant that has been added to this defense, who has been in some key spots and has really brought nothing to the table. And I think that person is Cam Sutton right now. And when you hear the defense talk about Cam Hayward saying 10 guys can't be doing their jobs and then one guy not be doing his job. And you hear, and then you see after the play, so, when some of those touchdowns where it's just wide open guy coverage busts and everyone's kind of pointing, a lot of times, more often than not, they're pointing in the way of number 20 right now.
They are. And listen, the last 2 games have been his 2 highest snap games, 2 highest snap counts. And that they've popped up like that. I don't think that Beanie Bishop has busted coverages like that recently. He did earlier in the year, and
he did.
Remember back, against the Colts and against the Cowboys a few times, everybody pointed out who was the coverage bust. It was Beanie, and he kind of fixed that, to his credit. So, I mean, Cam can fix it, but he's a vet. And let's be real here. This was apparent in Detroit last year, and it's been apparent in this year, especially when you go back and watch the Washington and the first Ravens game. Cam Sutton can't really play man-to-man anymore. He just doesn't have the speed he used to, and he was never a blazing guy, right? He was never a 4-3 guy. He was always a 4-5 guy that got by on savvy and the mental aptitude of his game. And so he is a guy that they've kind of had to put in this safety slot zone coverage rotational sub-package role. And so he's had to really kind of take out the man coverage part, the coverage part of his game, and just kind of be a smart player, communicate. So here's the thing, Chris. If we're talking about a guy that can't match up in man-to-man in the slot or outside anymore, and you're having him here for a versatile sub-package role, essentially the Patrick Peterson role from late last year, where he was a guy that took all those roles, and he's busting coverages?
Yeah.
What are we doing here? What is going on? What is the point to playing Cam Sutton as much? If he's going to bust coverages, if he's not going to be able to play man-to-man, I'd rather just play the young dude. I understand Beanie has his limitations, but I do know he tries. He's gotten much better with zone coverage. And even if he gets beat over the top a few times, he got beat by Zay Flowers last week, for example, I know that he's going to probably be in his right spot. And so I just think that's a big culprit. And then I think you talk about the other guys, Minkah and Queen. Those guys can't be playing hero ball. I think that's the hero ball part of it. I think that's where you hear some guys say they're playing hero ball. And Patrick Queen, by the way, every time he critiques the team, always makes sure to say, including myself. And you can see it when you watch the film, that there are some plays when Queen just tries to go out of the structure of the defense and make a play. But I think, 39 and 6 are trying to make some play because they feel pressure of it. I don't know what Sutton's doing out there half the time. He's just covering grass and no one's around him.
The
touchdown, man. He's just covering grass.
The Travis, how about the play, or I think it was Worthy ran the shallow cross on 3rd down, and Cam Sutton is in the space where he's supposed to, where that's coming, and he just sort of points at him. And you just see Minkah Fitzpatrick come from deep, I got it, and then boom, knocks him down. And look, Minkah has his busts, but I think part of it is because they are trying to make up for things here. And to your point about Cam Sutton, when these busts are, maybe that's why they're playing here because they don't trust him being on the field. And let's also point out the reason he's on the field is because they've had injuries in the secondary. Joey Porter Jr. was out this week. Dante Jackson and Deshaun Elliott were out the week before, so they've been needing him out there. James Pierre, as hardworking as he is, as much as you appreciate him just giving his all, he's not a corner that you want to have to play most of the time. That is emergency situation only. I do think Corey Trice played well. Just looking back at the game, I still have to see the all 22 angles out of it. I don't think that they really picked on him that much. I think he played to the scheme, and maybe he should be playing a little bit more.
Yes, I agree with that. One other play, Cam Sutton play, I want to point out. They got the stop. It was 3rd and short. They threw that little quick slant to DeAndre Hopkins, and PQ has him wrapped up and is just fighting him. And Cam Sutton just watches, like he's right near there and just watches him. Now PQ makes a stop, and I think got a penalty. I think that was when the holding penalty knocked him out like punt. But I mean, Cam Sutton just watches Patrick Queen fight DeAndre Hopkins. Like DeAndre Hopkins is not a small dude.
He's not.
And luckily PQ gets him down and stops him short. But I was like, dude, what is he doing? Like, I just don't know what Cam Sutton is doing out there half the time. And every time you see coverage bust, there's a guy that they point to. They pointed to 39 a few times, like on that worthy touchdown or on like the likely touchdown last week. PQ and Minka are clearly looking at each other like, what happened there? And then the Bateman touchdown last week was Corey just having a young guy moment, not knowing the depth of the play and all that. That happens. Okay. That's with Corey, right? He's a guy that's he's really in his rookie season, right? He's only played 4 games in the NFL.
Right.
So that's a young guy moment. But Cam Sutton is just blowing some of these plays, man, where he's just in the wrong spot, watching his teammates make a tackle. As you said, pointing to Worthy. Like, I just don't know what he's doing sometimes. And so he's definitely not the only culprit on the defensive side of the ball. Minka's had his rough times. I think Queen's had his rough moments. I think Dante Jackson yesterday certainly had his tough times.
He had some rough moments.
He had some rough moments as well. But the back 7 of this defense can't keep busting coverages.
Yeah.
And so no matter what happens offensively, the offense needs to be better. Russ needs to be better. All the offensive line needs to be better. Those guys need to be better, and they need to score some points. But it's inexcusable right now for what the defense is doing. The offense's issues are, technique things. It's not like they're throwing games, right? When you look at what the defense is doing, busting coverages, busting run fits, it's week 17. It can't happen. And that's fixable, Chris. And I think I guess that could be a source of optimism, or it's a source of whatever. You want to be enraged at it. But it is absolutely inexcusable. At any level, it doesn't matter if it's the college level or the high school level. If you are a high school team and you are in the state playoffs and you're busting coverages, you think coaches are going to be happy about that? College level, same thing. But an NFL team doing it this late in the year, you just don't see it, Chris. It just doesn't happen. And I think that's
hold on. Yeah. Let's not pretend that like every team will bust coverages. I think the whole point is this team made its hay off of not busting coverage for most of the season. The Bengals bust coverages every week. Heck, the Ravens were busting coverages for the first half of the season. That's where I think we need to bring it back. Like 1 second.
Well,
hold on.
I think the Bengals busted coverages are because of their lack of talent in the secondary. A lot of their busts are just them getting outran or.
They also have
the Ravens
are a good example. Breakdown.
The Ravens are a good example of this,
and they have fixed. And that's the thing. That's what I wanted to get to because we got to get to the next segment. The Ravens are an example of how that can be fixed. Now the difference is they did it after their bye week. The Steelers don't got a bye week. They got 10 days. Get ready for the Bengals. And then get ready for the playoffs. The fortunate thing for them is they do have the playoffs. They don't have to worry about that, but they do have to worry about who they might play. Because if they don't handle business against the Bengals, they could end up having to go on the road to Buffalo or to Baltimore based off of how things play out. But we'll talk about what they need to do next week, next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you, this show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the app you can download to get tickets to all your favorite live events, including the Steelers' regular season finale against the Bengals at Acrisure Stadium, but also to all your favorite concert venues, your favorite comedian coming to town. Get all those tickets from Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff so that you can see all the incredible deals and great seats without having to search through thousands of tickets to find the right ones. Right now, you can get tickets to all your favorite holiday shows in the Pittsburgh area, as well as the regular season finale for the Steelers, and also Pitt basketball games, which are coming back around very soon at Peterson Events Center as the Panthers are playing well. You can also look for on Game Time. They have what's called the Super Deal, where it finds you a combination of the best seat for the best price available, whether that's front row at a concert or club seats at the big game. Plus, Game Time has the Game Time guarantee, which means you'll always get the best price, because if you find tickets in the same section in a row for less somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference of those prices. Snag the tickets without stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase, or go to their website, gametime.co. Terms and conditions apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com. Nick, I want to talk about what can be changed, flipping things around. But I want to, before we do that, and I don't want to spend too long on this because I think the biggest thing is we got to look at the next things for the Steelers. I want to talk about the offense. Now, the O-line was pretty rough. Russ was pretty rough. Happy feet, missing open opportunities. And I think, look, Russ also deserves credit because he was dealing with, a pass rush that just had him under siege. And he was probably, him and Jalen Warren might have been the two primary playmakers for the offense yesterday in that game, or I guess 2 days ago, because you guys are watching this on Friday, but we're filming this on Thursday. You could say that, but still, you look at that. But to me, offensive line, young offensive line, I said going into this game, I didn't like that matchup, even with Chris Jones out. That's a tough Chiefs front. They got some really good pass rushers. That was going to be a challenge. But where I think that the big things can't happen, George Pickens, and, if we're talking about 10 guys doing their job and one guy not doing their job, there were more than a couple plays where that was the case with George Pickens in there. And he was supposed to be the difference maker this week for the offense to try to get back on track because they had been surviving without him. Not surviving. They've been barely hanging on without him. In this game, he made one really good catch. He made a couple of plays where I think, there could have been something else there, but ultimately, on the interception, he doesn't run his deep route. It allows the safety to go over and pick off Russell Wilson. There's other plays where you can see he just flat out just doesn't finish his route and is just looking back at Russell Wilson. And I look at that kind of stuff, and that's kind of stuff that I'd say you have to fix it. But the problem is, Nick, when you say you have to fix it, the player has to want to fix it, because this kind of stuff with Pickens isn't new. The Steelers have corrected it before. The coaches have addressed it, and he's gotten better at it. But it seems like he continues to regress. And when coaches are telling you to do something and you're not doing it, that falls down to personal responsibility, and he needs to have accountability for himself there.
Yeah, he does. You talk about the interception. It's not like, I think a lot of people focus on the crash outs on the sideline. And listen, there's a lot of receivers around the league that honestly crash out on the sideline and are just mad at whatever happens. And that's something that sometimes comes with having an elite receiver on your roster. There's exceptions, but a lot of elite receivers want the football, and if they think things are going wrong, they think they can fix it. Here's the thing. When George is not, running the correct route or is giving up after being pressed at the line, doesn't see how he can win it, that's affecting you on the field. Yep. Right? That is having direct on the field consequences. So he doesn't run a fade route, doesn't hold Justin Reed on the fade down the sideline. Reed plays the seam to Freiermuth, and all of a sudden it's a pick instead of maybe 6. That is a significant change.
Yep.
And so that cannot happen. It cannot happen. I think of things like that and say similar things to what I said on the defense. It's just inexcusable at this time of year. It's inexcusable really at any time of year, but you can't have that, right? It's not what winning teams have. They don't have guys doing that on the field. And that's a significant component of winning teams. They kind of take the little things, the little details, and you might not see all the little details in a great play, right? But sometimes those things are what makes the play pop, whether it's Pickens holding that decoy down the sideline or Freiermuth doing the opposite. Pat's done the same thing a lot for George at times, right? Where maybe he's a seam threat and then they are not able to double cover George, and that way George has a one-on-one chance. I mean, that's sometimes how schematics work. And so all these things come together. The offense definitely has a lot of issues, and as you said, George is certainly not, the George's effort on that play and other things, that's one part of it. There's certainly a lot of other issues I think that they have on offense. I think Russ is holding on to the football and taking some bad sacks. I think the offensive line in conjunction with that is also losing badly too often. Dan Moore and Broderick Jones the last 2 weeks have just had pretty brutal games. It's really been bad. Dan Moore had a great first 13 weeks. I feel like the last 3 or 4 he's struggled a little more.
How about this? Did you see that Pro Football Focus gave Broderick Jones one of the highest grades in the game? He had an 80 something.
Oh, wow. No, I didn't.
Listen, maybe I haven't studied Broderick in detail for this game. I still leave the all 22. All I've watched is the broadcast. But on my live, you and I sitting there in the press box, and then just me going back to the broadcast, I did not think Broderick Jones had a good game. And this is a person who's said that I think that Broderick Jones catches a lot of flack for things that aren't necessarily as bad as people make them seem. But I didn't think yesterday was Christmas was a good example of him overcoming that. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I haven't studied the film like that for this game. But I saw that. But I didn't want to spend too much time on the offense. I want to ask you this question because I think this is the biggest thing. You talked about things that can be fixed, things that can be turned around. I think one of the things that plays into the whole mystique of Tomlin's season record, streak of non-losing seasons is the Steelers, when they have hit rock bottom in a lot of seasons, they have drew a line in the sand and said the buck stops here. We turn things around. They did that last year after their three-game skid. They did that, in 2021 when they were 2-6 or 2-7 at the start of the year, and then they finished 9-8. They did that. They've done it several times. You go back year by year. There's several points where they've said okay, this is not where we fall. But oftentimes when they've drawn that line in the sand, it's just to get them to the playoffs or just to get them over the hump. Now, if they can draw that line in the sand and make that turnaround happen here. One, you have a Bengals team next week that's, I think, will be beatable regardless of if they play their starters or not. You beat them in their place, you can beat them in your place if you play your style of ball again. And then if you win that game, you get the Texans, who we see aren't playing good football. You get that. If you handle your business for 2 straight weeks, it gives you the chance to get things right. So, Nick, if there's something to get right now, is it just the coverage? I want you to give me one thing on offense, one thing on defense, that if they get these 2 things right, it can flip their fortunes back around and make them a competitive team again.
Yeah, defensively, it is the coverage. I mean, they got to fix those busts. I don't think it's really – it's just that simple. They just got to stop busting coverages and busting run fits. If they can fix that, that defense is going to be much better. I mean, they've been really, really struggling the last 3 weeks, but the last 2 weeks have just been very, very unfortunate because I feel like when they have communicated on some of those drives, I thought we saw them really hunker down and give the Chiefs trouble for an entire quarter because I think they're very talented, obviously. I think on the offensive side of the football, I don't know if schematic tweaks are going to help a ton because I think Arthur Smith has started to do that. Like their running game has become more efficient. They've gone to Jaylen Warren a little more recently. I like the gap stuff they put in. I could do without the 6 Cordero Patterson snaps a game, but it's probably just going to be a thing. I would like to see them, and this is if I'm going to do one schematic thing, because I think the changes that are going to happen are Russ is just going to have to see the field and play better, and the offensive line is going to have to play a little better. So some of that's just coaching, technique things. But I think the one schematic thing that I would like to see is I would like to see some gun play action. I would like to see that pop up. And the reason is I just think their under center play action game all year has just been dead. It's been the bootlegs, it's easy to keep them on schedule in early downs. I understand why they like that. But on the short times they have brought out play action out of the gun, I think they've had some really good success. And I think it makes sense to use it because if you're going to run these gap stuff out of the gun, if you're going to bring in Jaylen Warren and use him as a pass game threat, I think what you can do there is use Jaylen Warren's magnetism against defenses and open up things over the middle of the field. And not only do you open things up over the middle of the field, because it's in shotgun, I don't think you have the issue of Russ seeing the field, right? I think one of the big issues when Russ is under center is sometimes he can't see the middle of the field because of his height, and that's always been an issue. And I think if you have him in the gun, he can read the defense and open it up. And I thought they did that a little bit against Cincy, right? The last time they played Cincinnati, they had a few of those gun play actions and the quick stuff. Like I could think of the fake toss to Skoranek last week where he fakes it, throws her at the seam to Skoranek, the flash fake to Van Jefferson against the Ravens. I think getting in the gun a little more is actually not a bad idea for the Steelers. I also think they're just more effective. If they want to run the toss, they want to run the gap stuff, I think they're a little more effective and efficient as an offense out of the gun. So I would like to see that a little more. I think it helps Russ. I think it helps the O-line a little bit as well. And so I think it would actually help the offense a little bit. But that's just a schematic tweak I would like to see.
No, I feel you on that. I think that would certainly give you a chance there to give Russell Wilson the space to kind of be kind of who he needs to be. And then two, to keep that running threat there. And to your point, Jaylen Warren, and listen, this is another person. I've been a person to say I think Najee Harris catches a lot of flack where it doesn't need to be. But even when there's not time for not giving flack to Najee Harris, there's time to give praise to Jaylen Warren. And he's been playing so much better recently. I think a big part of it too is he's gotten healthy. He started off the year hurt, and we talked about how that was coming back to bite him. And he certainly, made the best of it. I think this last game, there was no doubt. And sure, Najee Harris got numbered to the end of the game. If you look at it, I think he averaged like 5.7, but that all came in garbage time when the Chiefs were kind of just like, okay, do whatever you need to do. This game's already over. But I look at that and I think, yeah, that does make sense. I give that a shot. But I agree with you on both segments. The coverage mistakes, this is what Deshaun Elliott is so frustrated about. These are things that they did right for most of this season. That's a big reason why they were 10-3 before this 3-game stretch. And again, 5 of those 10 wins were against playoff teams. So you look at what they did there. And I think there's reason to believe they can get back to that. And then as far as Russell Wilson, seeing the field was what he was doing that was making him a better quarterback. He hasn't done that the last 2 games. I give him the Eagles game a break because he only got the ball twice in the second half, and there was a fumble there. So I'm not as harsh on him for that one. But I gave him 3 skulls for the Ravens game. I'm not sure if I'll give him 3 skulls for this game, but he's getting at least some skulls. It's going to be a graveyard. I'll tell that for those people who look forward to the grades. We might do those Monday this week. We'll see how that plays out. But we got to get to our picks here for Week 17 because we're already getting way over our time here. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you, the show is also brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through some mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourselves? Well, our sponsor, Hillsdale College, offers more than 40 free online courses, including Constitution 101, Intro to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and many more. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. Hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We're here with Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com, and it's time to get to our picks segment here. Now, I was stupid, and I did forget to put in my picks in the ESPN Pick'em League this week in time for the Christmas Day games, so that counts as both losses, and I would have won both because the Chiefs and the Ravens both won, and I picked both of them. So, phooey on me. But let's get to the rest of the games. We're going to skip Thursday night, of course, because it's the Friday show. So we're going to run these fast. Nick, give me quick breakdowns in each game. We don't need too much long one, except for a couple that I'll highlight. First, not that long. Chargers are 4.5-point road favorites over the Patriots. I think the Chargers dog walk them. Do you agree?
I don't know about dog walk them. I like what Drake May's doing, but I do think that they win. Yeah, I take the Chargers here.
Now, the big game I think everyone's going to be looking at this weekend is Broncos at Bengals. Why is this big? One, the Bengals are 3-point favorites at home. But if the Broncos win, I do believe that eliminates the Bengals from playoff competition. They will have nothing to play for in Week 18 outside of being a spoiler to the Steelers, and the Steelers will be in the playoffs. So it might incentivize the Bengals to bench a couple players. It also might make that game. This is where because I don't really care much about that part. For me, I just want it to be a 1 p.m. Sunday game. Please, Broncos, beat the Bengals so that they're not playing for playoff hopes. So I don't have to go to another night game this year. This year, that's all I want. That's why make that my Christmas gift. But because of that, I'll take the Broncos simply because your brother would like some sleep.
Yeah, I'm taking the Bengals in this one. I think they found a little bit of something, and I think it's not a great matchup for the Broncos. I don't think they're built necessarily for shootouts, but then again, the Bengals defense always proves me wrong with how bad they are. So they could definitely easily see them losing this game, but I think Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. Riley Moss, is not playing. I think that's going to be a tough one.
It could be a tough one. I don't believe in the Bengals defense. I think that they're gonna cost them again in this game. All right, let's move it along here. Last Saturday night football game before we get to Sunday games. Cardinals at Rams. Rams are 6.5-point favorites. Cardinals are eliminated from the playoffs, and the Rams are fighting for top of the NFC West. Give me the Rams. They've been playing well lately.
Yeah, it's a tough one for the Cardinals because they're just like the epitome of mediocrity and can win any week. But I agree. I like the Rams in this one. I think they're more high-powered offensively to win it.
All right, then we move to an NFC East showdown. Normally, this would be a hyped up game because it's Cowboys and Eagles. Those teams hate each other so much, but the Eagles are 7.5-point favorites in this game. And man, I'm really intrigued about that because when I look at that, I got to know how Jalen Hurts is. If Jalen Hurts doesn't play, I'm going to be then I might actually pick the Cowboys here. For now, I'll stick with the Eagles because I think that they still are a better team. But man, that did not look good when Jalen Hurts got hurt last week.
Yeah, and Kenny Pickett's hurt too. He'll play,
Yep.
but he's also 100% with a rib injury. So, I mean, that's tough. But the Cowboys, man, are seriously
so bad.
deficient. I don't know if they can win in the trenches. I think I'll take the Eagles in this one too, but Cooper Rush just played way better than I thought he would. So
Same.
Congrats to him, man.
Yeah, moving right along. Colts at Giants, an old school NFL battle. 7.5 points of the Colts favored on the road. You could make that 20 points. I'd still pick the Colts. Just because Giants are just so bad.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think I'd pick the Giants against another team in the NFL right now. I'm taking the Colts.
Raiders at Saints. Raiders are 1.5-point favorites. Give me the Raiders because the Saints got shut out last week, and that was really embarrassing. But I also don't trust the Raiders. This is a toilet bowl of a game.
Yeah, it is. I'll take the Raiders because the Saints are just they're probably going to be missing Alvin Kamara too. I'll take the Raiders.
Jets at Bills. Bills 8.5-point favorites. You can make that 11.5 points. I'd still take the Bills. I think that they win this one solidly, though it is a divisional game and the Bills haven't played as cleanly as I'd like them to play. I'll still take Buffalo.
Jets are at least talented, but Aaron Rodgers is hurt too on top of that. So, yeah, I think the Bills will win this one.
Titans and Jaguars, another toilet bowl here. I could do another flip of the coin this week. I'm going to go with the Jaguars. Give me them at 1.5 points.
I believe in Mason Rudolph. I'll take the Mason Rudolph led
Mason Rudolph. There you go. Christmas miracles from Rudolph yet again. Buccaneers are 8.5-point favorites at home to the Panthers. Okay. The Panthers have been right. That's a lot of points. That's a lot of points. I don't know, man. Give me the Panthers in an upset. I'm not even picking the cover. Give me Carolina. Bryce Young's going to do something this week.
Dude, he's been balling. And the Buccaneers have like no safeties. That is another issue. Their DBs has been awful.
Yeah.
And Baker Mayfield either looks like a top 10 quarterback or he just looks absolutely awful. And it's like a drive to drive experience. It's absolutely insane. That game against the Cowboys. It was incredible to watch Baker Mayfield go boom, boom, boom. I don't know. I think usually after Baker has an absolute stinker, he bounces back. So give me the Buccaneers in a shootout. I'll take the Buccaneers.
Dolphins at Browns. Dolphins 6.5-point favorites. Giving me Miami. The Browns are tanking.
Yeah, I'll take the Miami Dolphins too.
Packers at Vikings, game of the week here. Vikings 1.5-point favorites at home, but give me Green Bay. I believe in Jordan Love. I believe in this Packers defense. They're playing well. I think they're going to pull this one out.
Kevin O'Connell has been cooking in the kitchen.
He has been cooking.
Sam Darnold is playing really well too.
Yes.
They have been playing really well. Brian Flores has been calling great stuff with the defense, but Matt LaFleur is also doing some good things in Green Bay. It is a really good matchup. I'm taking Green Bay. I just feel like right now, I like the Vikings as a team. I do think that they are kind of overachieving right now. Though,
yes.
Because I think they have great coaching. I think a lot of players are playing above their heads right now. I think at some point it comes down a little bit. This one feels like a natural point.
Falcons at Commanders. Commanders are 4.5-point favorites at home. Listen, Michael Penix was a great story last week. This is a fun matchup because it's Penix versus Daniels, but give me Daniels. I think the Commanders are still just the better team.
I agree, but give me the Falcons. I'm taking Penix and the Falcons in this one. They are up against the wall. They need help to win the playoff
This is
game.
True.
They need to. And I thought Penix looked really good last week. So I'm taking an upside swing. I'm taking Penix in this one. And I think the Falcons, are a little fun story maybe if they make it to the playoffs. We'll see.
They would be an interesting, fun story. Lions at Niners. Lions are 3.5-point favorites. I think that's way too small a spread. Give me the Lions.
Yeah, give me the Lions. This is like the walking wounded over there in San Francisco. Even Purdy, even though he's playing, is not 100. So I'll take the Lions.
And the Lions are hurt of too, but they're still playing a lot better. But all that being said, those are your Week 17 picks. Make sure you join in on the Locked On Steelers ESPN group for the Pick'em League there in their Pigskin Pick'em. Nick, thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let me find you, follow you, get more of your work.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Chris. You can follow me at Farabaugh FB. Make sure to read the stuff over at penlive.com. Great stuff coming out there as always.
As always, he's Nick Farabaugh. Thank you, Nick, for joining us. And thank you all for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast all week long. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, all the social medias at Carter Critiques. It's always my handle. You can also find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every Monday through Friday on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this channel to get all of my Monday through Friday episodes and read me in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. We're going to have the weekend, but I'll be back Monday seeing it's things. We might try to get grades out Monday. We might stick to them on Tuesday, but either way, we'll have time to break things down, look at all 22 film, and give you final looks at how the Steelers need to rebound and get back on the winning side of things in their final week of the regular season. We'll do that here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.